Have you read a story in the Draoithe Saga and come away with a classic case of immersion after effect? Let me guess, there are questions which remain unanswered even as the magic expanded, adding another layer to the dream. The grand desire to turn the page to discover what happened next ended with the last leaf turned. If you're asking where the remedy for the book hangover is, you know the answer: read another story. But you aren't ready for the next tale, not yet. The dust needs to settle before you pick up the next volume. So you have found your way here. You aren't alone. Even the author can't get enough. As you hear this, Ophelia writes on. But allow me to offer you a possibility, a reflection on the tale you recently finished, and a way to revisit the story to ease the story blues. Welcome to the Draoithe Saga After Party. Warning, spoiler alerts ahead. Turn back now if you wish to read the story blind.
All right, let's unpack this deep dive. We've got the sources you shared with us, all focused on Ophelia Keyes' Dreamwalker and the wider Draoithe Saga.
Yeah, this is a really rich corner of steamy urban fantasy. Paranormal romance, too. Yeah. It feels like myths, legends, fairy tales, they've just sort of walked right into our world.
Specifically Texas, yeah.
Specifically Texas. And fated mates are a huge theme here.
Yeah.
Just a heads up for you, based on the sources, we are going to be discussing some adult themes.
Right.
Fantasy violence, explicit sexual situations.
Oh.
So this deep dive is definitely for a mature audience.
Our mission, well, it's pretty simple. Dive into these sources you sent, grab the absolute must-know stuff, pull out the surprising insights, maybe.
Yeah.
And give you the clearest picture we can of this world, the key players, and, the intense events happening in Dreamwalk.
Sort of like the essential understanding without you having to comb through everything yourself.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's maybe start with the world itself.
Yeah.
Because the sources frame Draoithe in a really unique way. It's described as a dream, but not just a dream you have at night. It's like a reality where these fantastical beings and stories actually exist.
Okay, a dream reality. And the saga itself, the structure, it mirrors this epic feel.
Yeah, it's defined like those old medieval sagas, a long story of heroic achievement, kind of chronicling the dramatic history of a specific social group.
And what's the core purpose behind it all?
Well, the sources say it's about founding an immortal kingdom right here on Earth in a place called the Leaindeail.
Okay.
And they're doing this specifically to fight forces that are unbalancing the magic of this dream world.
And they name names.
They do. Peter Elliott is called out as a primary antagonist.
Gotcha. And where is this all happening, the setting?
The central time frame the sources point to is the year 01 X. It's set in a magical realist version of Tyler, Texas.
Huh. Tyler, Texas. Interesting.
Yeah, though, as the story unfolds across the whole saga, other kingdoms and locations definitely come into play. It expands.
Right. And for people reading along, how is it structured? Is it just one massive story?
Well, it's compartmentalized into miniseries, which definitely helps make it more digestible.
It's useful.
And Dreamwalker connects directly into the Royal Council miniseries and the very start of the Valkyrie's Ride one.
Okay.
The story itself is told through the eyes of those involved in actually building this kingdom, often focusing on couples finding hope through their connection to Draoithe.
So character-driven, focusing on relationships within this larger context.
Exactly. And while you could probably pick up Dreamwalker standalone, the sources definitely suggest reading the saga in order for the best experience. Makes sense, right?
Yeah, I get the full picture that way. Okay, let's meet some of the core players, the ones whose lives really crash together in this book. First up, Mihaela.
Mihaela, right? She's a Vjestice vampire princess. Her ancient enclave was destroyed, which is sort of what brings her into this new situation.
And she's old.
Ancient. 463 years old. And she follows these very old traditions tied to someone called the Lord of the Forest, Bolos. She has the female aspect of the bear god's magic.
Bear god magic, okay. That sounds powerful.
It is. But here's a key thing about her. The sources make this really clear. She's spent centuries actively avoiding taking a consort.
Why?
Fear, mostly. Fear of subjugation, losing her power. She just saw it as unnecessary. Until now, that is.
So something changed.
Well, her home was destroyed. Her people, too. By Peter Elliott and someone named Pill Sanders. So now she's seeking sanctuary.
Right, that makes sense.
And there's this interesting little detail the sources throw in. Despite being ancient and powerful, she's got this odd vulnerability. She doesn't know how to cook or drive.
Huh. Really shows how different her old life was, I guess.
Totally. Removed from the mundane, modern world.
Then you've got Kallik Tarkik.
Okay, who's he?
He's described as a powerful dreamwalker and a Kodiak bear shifter alpha. Even older than Mihaela, 797 years old.
Wow, so another ancient power player. Definitely. He's presented as a master of stables, a really skilled ranch hand. Apparently, he left his tribe after leading them for over a century.
Why'd he leave?
Sources say times were changing, and his own immortality made him kind of restless. So he's been wandering for over 100 years, specifically looking for his life mate.
And he thinks Mihaela is the one.
He's certain. Guided by the dream, He believes she's his fated mate. So he shows up, seeking work as a stable master, and also sanctuary with the pack.
And how do they even meet?
Interestingly, their first contact is actually in the dream space. It's facilitated by another dreamwalker, Eli Miller.
Eli Miller.
Yeah, he's affectionately called a tiny kitty cat in the dream world. Eli's really key in helping Mihaela heal there initially, and he's part of that core group building Draoithe, Luke, Fox, Artie, Javier, Isabel.
Oh, and the sources mentioned Mihaela likes Eli's truck.
Yeah, they did. A funny little detail.
So who's in charge of this whole operation? This pack?
That would be Luke Mendez. He's the alpha, known as the Rirurek, which means king.
King? Okay, so he's the leader.
He is. He's the one offering sanctuary, protection against enemies like Elliot. He's basically leading the charge in establishing Draoithe.
Makes sense he'd be the decision maker then.
Absolutely. He reviews petitions for membership, courtship, all that. And he puts a really high value on stability, especially for his inner council.
Stability how?
Ideally, he requires his council members to be bonded mates. And as you can imagine, that requirement is going to cause some significant tension down the line.
I can see that. Okay, who else is key here? You mentioned someone with Mihaela.
Andrei Alexandrescu. He's Mihaela's fiercely loyal former guard and friend.
Okay, what's his deal?
Andrei is a Zduhaci Unbound. The sources describe him as a dragon man who wields the male power of the bear god, Bolos.
So the counterpart to Mihaela's female bear magic.
Exactly. And Mihaela herself actually turned him years ago.
Turned him into a Zduhaci.
Yeah. Their bond is described as unique, almost familial, but the sources are really clear he cannot bond magically with her like a consort would.
And this unbound status is bad.
Very. It's repeatedly called out as incredibly dangerous in traditional vampire society.
Why dangerous?
The sources hint it might stem from some big past event, maybe called the Breaking or Anekigo. They don't detail it here, but the key thing is, being Zduhaci Unbound puts a massive target on his back. He gives an oath of service to Luke, though, which offers some protection.
Okay, so you've got Mihaela and Andrei, refugees basically, showing up, needing help.
Exactly. Their home, their people, wiped out by Elliot and Pilsanders. They need sanctuary.
And then Kallik shows up right after.
Pretty much. Also seeking sanctuary, looking for work, and boom, he instantly identifies Mihaela as the mate he's been seeking for over a century, guided by the dream.
Talk about timing. So the pack's first job is just keeping them safe.
Pretty much. Providing refuge, protection against enemies like Elliot. They're staying in a house for now, but yeah, that's just temporary.
Because the real goal is building Draoithe itself.
Right. Construction is ongoing.
Yeah.
The sources mention plans for a mid-July move-in.
Yeah.
And the plans are ambitious.
Like what?
Stables, obviously, for Kallik, maybe. An art gallery and studio called The Labyrinth. That's Isabel's project. A university with a digital library that Fox, Artie, Andrei, and another character, Nadine, are working on. A restaurant. Even potential catacombs for travel.
Wow, they're not thinking small. It's like building a whole town.
Basically, yeah. A whole new civilization, almost. And the pack reflects that. It's growing, becoming really diverse.
Who else is around?
Well, you've got Fox, he's Ruri, the skilled cook, described as a collector of info and strays. Kind of. He's mated to Artie.
And Artie?
Artie has white magic, apparently great at advertising, and a skilled stick fighter. Then there's Javier, Isabel's mate. He handles travel planning, loves art.
And Isabel, the artist with the gallery project.
Yeah, she has Phoenix Fire. She sees the pack as magic's answer to the imbalance Elliot's causing. And Nadine, who we mentioned is working on the library, she's a Philippine eagle shifter seeking haven. Sources note she seems interested in Andrei.
So real mix of powers and personalities.
Definitely. And it's needed, because the number of sanctuary seekers and inquiries keeps growing. Sources mention others arriving a dragon named Emmerich Driscoll, an ex-military guy, Raker Talbert.
They even get inquiries about vacation packages.
Apparently, which really highlights the need for the pack to carefully vet everyone showing up. You don't know who's a threat or who could be an ally.
So the goal is clearly growth, building power.
For sure. They're aiming for around 14 council members. The king, queens, knights structure. They know they need to grow quietly at first, become a real threat to Elliot, maybe consider alliances later.
And this ties back to Luke wanting stability, wanting bonded mates on his council.
Exactly. That requirement creates potential friction, especially with powerful members who might be unbound, like Andrei, or whose species just don't bond in that specific way. Like, what about vampires or Zduhaci Unbound on the council? It's a potential issue.
Okay, so we have the people, the place, the politics, but none of it clicks without understanding the magic. And you said it gets pretty unique here.
Yeah, especially the Vjestice and Zduhaci magic, the stuff Mihaela and Andrei wield. The sources really dive into this.
So break it down for us.
Okay, so it's derived from the bear god Bolos. Vjestice, like Mihaela, have the female power associated with seers, protectors. Zduhaci, like Andrei and later Riker, have the male power tied to death.
Male power tied to death, female to protection. Interesting contrast. And being unbound, that has real consequences.
Oh yeah. For Mihaela, as Vjestice Unbound, she loses certain rights within her traditional vampire society. Right. The sources don't list exactly what here, but it implies limitations.
And for Andrei, the Zduhaci Unbound.
It's way more severe. They're considered dangerous, unstable maybe, and face a death sentence in vampire society. Big deal.
Wow, so bonding isn't just optional, it's kind of crucial. Especially for Mihaela.
Absolutely critical for her. It's required for her to teleport, for one thing. And for both partners, bonding dramatically enhances and intertwines their magic. It makes them stronger together.
And how does this bonding happen? The sources get specific.
Yeah. Very specific. It involves a blood exchange. And explicitly linking minds during intercourse, using the energy from climax specifically.
Whoa! Okay, specific is the word. And powerful, sounds like.
Extremely. The sources also note that Vjestice feeds from the consort during this process, and there's a real danger she could accidentally kill him if something goes wrong.
High stakes.
Yeah.
What about the power dynamics within that bond?
Complex. While the stronger partner can subjugate the weaker one, the sources also say the Vjestice can sort of steal the consort's strength, and the Zduhaci Unbound takes the Vjestice's strength and power if they bond.
Okay, tricky balance.
Yeah, and there's this law of threes mentioned for Vjestice magic. It specifically requires the Vjestice to drink from the consort for the third time, exactly at sunrise, to fully complete the binding. Make him her consort.
3 times at sunrise. Got it. Now, shifting slightly, what about Kallik's magic? Dream walking.
Right, his power is highlighted as immense, especially in the dream space. He can literally build and control the dream environment.
Like shape reality there.
Pretty much. Heal minds, kill bodies from within the dream, draw other people in, deny access, talk to people, dream to dream. The sources emphasize he's actually stronger in the dream than in the waking world.
And he identifies more as a dreamwalker than a bear.
Yeah, he sees himself as dreamwalker first, bear second. It's core to who he is.
Any other cool magic mentioned?
We get glimpses, standard shifter stuff like Kallik's bear form, Nadine's eagle. Artie uses white magic. Isabel has phoenix fire. Oh, in this weird detail. Canine bites apparently act as an anticoagulant to vampires in this world.
Huh. Good to know if you're fighting vampires, I guess.
Right. Now, to really get Mihaela, her fears, her resistance, we have to look at her past. The sources are pretty graphic about how she was turned and made Vjestice.
How bad was it?
It sounds horrific, honestly. Described as being drained, tied down, violated with dagger wounds, stomach, heart, and then forced to drink blood. It wasn't just physical pain, it was deep physical and emotional trauma. Violation.
Okay, yeah. That's brutal.
And the sources are explicit. This trauma is the absolute root of her fear of being bound, controlled, subjugated by a consort. It's why she's refused for centuries.
It completely explains her vulnerability, her distrust.
Totally. Makes it incredibly hard for her to allow any kind of intimacy, friendship even. She's terrified of losing her autonomy again or having her own power used against her.
So all this history, this intense trauma, she brings that with her to the pack.
Exactly. Which sets the stage for when Kallik finds her. He's patient, yeah, but he's also driven. He's utterly certain she's his fated mate.
Because the dream doesn't lie.
Right. He apparently studied her in the dream for over a century before he finally located her in the real world.
A century. Wow. Okay, so he knows her, in a way. How does he approach her initially?
The sources say he tries friendship first, tries to understand her damage, wants her to trust him. He even wants to heal her broken mind using his dream-walking abilities.
But things don't stay calm and friendly.
No. The situation escalates, like, dramatically. The turning point is when Mihaela, completely overwhelmed by panic and her trauma, probably triggered by the whole consort idea, she flees the house, runs away from the pack's protector.
Okay, that's not good. How does Luke, the alpha, react?
He interprets her flight as her basically forfeiting her rights as an unbound vampire, seeking sanctuary under his protection.
Right.
Like, she broke the rules of sanctuary by running.
So he takes action.
He does. He makes a major strategic call, invoking something called Plan Y, which sounds like a last resort kind of thing.
And why? What is it?
It's basically forcing the issue. He orders Kallik to find Mihaela, bring her back,
Right.
and requires them to return within 2 weeks as Zduhaci consort. Bonded.
Whoa! He orders them to bond.
Yeah. So this decision directly forces the conflict. It pits Kallik's desire for his mate against the very thing Mihaela fears most because of her horrific past.
That's intense. Talk about high pressure.
Extremely. And that leads right into what the sources describe as the stormy bonding itself. It's not gentle.
How does it go down?
Kallik finds her, corners her, asserts his claim, not just because of destiny, but arguing she caused this by leaving, forcing Luke's hand to require the bond for her sanctuary.
So he blames her, partly.
Seems like it, yeah. And the sources really emphasize her feeling of betrayal, feeling forced, her intense fear of his power, and being subjugated all over again.
But the bonding happens anyway, because Luke ordered it.
It happens. The sources detail the magical process. Mihaela has to drink from Kallik on 3 consecutive nights at sunrise to bind him. That law of threes thing.
Right.
Kallik allows her to drink. Tells her his blood will call to her, compel her to bond and link. He urges her to become his. And then he initiates the physical and magical bond from his side.
How?
By biting her, drinking her blood, and, well, her pleasure, as the sources put it.
Okay, so it's mutual feeding, but initiated under duress for her.
Pretty much. It's described as incredibly intense, conflicting. There's his dominance, her initial physical struggle, pain during the act, but then this magical effect forcing her to climax. Him drinking her pleasure and this fusing of their souls and magic.
And the aftermath.
Physical exhaustion, pain, trembling. But then, crucially, the sources say she feels contentment.
Contentment after all that.
Apparently.
Yeah.
The outcome is clear. Kallik is bound to her as consort. She's fed from him, described as sated and happy. He gains teleportation from the bond. Her magic nearly doubles, almost equaling his power level.
So they both gain power. What about the control aspect she feared?
This is key. The sources emphasize Kallik understands he cannot and will not subjugate her magic. He only requires her submission to his needs as a man, basically, while she retains total free use of her mind and her magic.
So a specific kind of submission, not total control.
Exactly. The bond is forged. But yeah, definitely under difficult, maybe even traumatic circumstances for Mihaela, given her history.
And this bond, it's not just personal, right? It affects the pack.
Immediately. It becomes part of the pack's strength. Kallik is now officially bound to the pack's Vjestice. They're a more powerful unit against Elliot.
And Kallik gets a new job description.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
He now has this specific strategic role, using his massive Dreamwalker power directly against Peter Elliot in the dream space.
So their personal story, however messy, is instantly tied to the bigger fight.
Absolutely. It all connects.
Were there other interesting little details or side plots in the sources?
Yeah, definitely stuff that adds flavor. There's Riker's situation, this ex-military guy. He gets attacked by a panther named Lily, then turned Zduhaci Unbound by Andrei.
Turned by Andrei.
Yeah, and now Riker needs to drink exclusively from Andrei for 3 nights just to survive the transformation.
Yeah.
So that's a whole complicated side drama.
Okay, wow. What else?
There's the ongoing search for specific books Mihaela needs for her magic or history, maybe. Details about Fox's cooking. Apparently, he's very particular about his kitchen. Artie's stick fighting training is mentioned. There's this cool detail that the horses on the property react specifically to Mihaela's presence, sense her power maybe. Plus, the constant background noise of the construction at Draoithe. And that university database project Fox, Artie, Andrei, and Nadine are working on together.
It really paints a picture of a busy, complex place. Lots going on.
Yeah, these details bring the world to life, show how interconnected everyone is, the daily stuff happening, even while they're building a kingdom and fighting this big magical war.
So wrapping this up, we've journeyed deep into Draoithe, explored its kind of unique blend of magical reality, urban fantasy, delved into these really challenging pasts that shape characters like Mihaela and Kallik, and examined this intense, undeniably difficult forging of a fated mate bond.
A bond driven by destiny, yeah, that also personal trauma and urgent strategic necessity. It's complicated.
We've uncovered layers of magic, looked at character motivations that seem really influenced by devastating trauma, but also this strong sense of purpose.
And seen how individual destinies, individual desires, they intertwine directly with this larger fight for balance against enemies like Peter Elliott. It's not happening in a vacuum.
Right. So the source material describes this fated mate bond, but it's forged under duress, isn't it? One partner feels coerced, maybe even subjugated by the initial process.
Yeah, that's fair to say based on Mihaela's experience.
Yet the magic binds them. It grants immense power, leads to physical connection, and the sources say it results in pleasure and contentment eventually.
Right.
So it raises this really important, maybe uncomfortable question for you to think about. In a world where magic dictates destiny and survival against huge threats requires harnessing every possible source of strength, including maybe these difficult bonds, can a partnership born out of conflict and necessity still lead to true healing? A real relationship?
Or, even for a fated mate, is the cost sometimes just too high? The cost of power, protection, is it worth the way it started?
A lot to think about indeed. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into Dreamwalker and the Draoithe Saga.
Thank you for your support. For more, visit opheliakey.com. Welcome to the dream. Sincerely. Okay.